So have you guys had a good conference here this week? Has it been good for you? You know, this is my fourth TechEd in the U.S., and I tell you, for some reason, this has felt, to me anyway, to be the best that I've ever done so far. I'm not sure why. Because it always is, right? Actually, no. The gentleman said, I say that every time. Yeah, because, I'm trying to buddy you guys up, right? But no, actually, I was admitting to my friends over here, I have very little recollection of TechEd in Dallas last year. I don't know why, right? I just don't remember a lot about it. And I just think it's Dallas. I apologize to all of you Texans out here. It's just a joke. Okay? Yeah, there's one. There's one. No, honestly, but this has been a really, really good event this year. I have a question for all of you. Why doesn't the clicker work? No. Have you ever heard about social engineering? Right? Is this something that you've... obviously, enough of you know what it means that you came to the session. You don't actually search on Speaker, do you? No. Yes? Yes? What about physical security? Do you think about this one? Right? I'm trying to outline something here for you. Now, all good sessions must have an overview of the 7-layer OSI stack, right? Very important, very critical in any session about networking. But the thing is, I don't think that we understand this very well, because anytime we actually start trying to make any real sense out of it, it just falls down, right? It just completely falls apart. Nothing fits into this model. But the reason is we forget layer 0. All right? We totally abandon this. And you can't build any electronic thing on top of something where you haven't considered the physical layer. I told my physical layer story about the Galileo, oops, I shouldn't mention the name, about the hosting center in another session earlier. I won't tell you that one again. But what happens then? So we have good physical security. We build a great system with networks and hosts on top of that. And along comes the human. And the human does what? Puts his fingers on the system, and it falls apart again. And then what? The human saunters off. Right? Unaware or unconcerned about what happened. You know this problem? What is the problem? People spend a fortune on technology and are still vulnerable to good old-fashioned manipulation. Look how many of you I got to come back today. You don't believe me? Let's go over a few examples. Hired penetration test. Some of you might have actually done this in your own network. An organization contracted with a penetration testing company to come try to break into the network. Didn't tell any of their employees anything, right? And they walk in, fool the guards. Who's seen Sneakers, the movie Sneakers? This is an interesting example of social engineering here. It's very similar to this. Confuse the guards, get them to let you in when you shouldn't get in, and they got in, roamed around, got into the CEO's office, rummaged through dumpsters, found information, got to the guy's computer. His password was golf. Anybody with vice president title or higher has a password of golf generally, right? I know this because none of them go mountain biking with me, so they must be doing some other sport, right? And absconded with all kinds of data. And nobody in the organization realized what was going on, but it happened in the daylight right under their noses. Sometimes people at help desks can be a little bit too helpful. This is a live demonstration that somebody did at a conference very similar to this one time. Called up the telephone company and said, "Who's the supervisor on duty tonight?" "Oh, it's Betty. Can I talk to Betty, please?" Rumble, rumble, rumble. Get Betty on the phone. Social engineer says, "Hey, Betty, are you having network problems tonight?" "No, everything seems to be fine." "Well, I'm showing here on my remote diagnostic console that there's something going on. Check again." Click, 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 click. No problem. "Oh, Betty, I need you to log off and log back on." So she logs off, logs back on. "I don't see a problem. What's going on?" Social engineer says, I'm going to have to take over your console. I've got to do some testing. What's your password?" And Betty is the help desk supervisor and told it to him over the phone. How about getting a credit card number? So you should make friends with someone at a crosstown video rental store. I do believe there are still 2 of these in the country, right? Somewhere. Call up somebody, get to know them over time, make friends, and then you say, hey, you know, I got a customer here in my store. He normally comes to your store, but he's in my store this time, and he wants to rent a movie, but he forgot his credit card number. Can you look up his records and tell me his credit card number? And let me know what are the movies he's rented to. Clerk freely gave it away. Teach your clerks not to give away stuff like this, right? Verizon has done something within the last year to help solve this problem. They actually do not display on the screens of the CSRs call detail records and billing information and credit card numbers anymore, so that the CSRs can't be social engineered to give out this kind of information. Think about that for those of you who might be working on or managing the software that CSRs use. Don't even display the stuff. If you can't fix that, train them not to give out this information. No one would ever call up and legitimately request their own or somebody else's credit card number. Don't have secure ID? No problem, right? I don't need your secure ID to log into the network. I mean, I don't need my secure ID to log into the network. I could use yours, right? The problem with the way secure ID is usually implemented is that there is no link between the PIN and an actual Active Directory credential. Now, this will be fixed when they get their new Gina hooked into the Windows login process, right, so that there is. But a lot of times right now, all the Secure ID card does is authenticate you to the ACE server. So if I don't have mine, or if I have conveniently forgotten it, I'll call, again, the help desk. And I'll say, hey, you know, I'm Joe. And I've done some research to find out Joe's a very important person in this organization. I need to get online. I left my Secure ID at my desk. Would you go get it for me? Of course, the guy at the help desk is not allowed to leave his desk, right? So he'll say, I can't do that. So Joe says, oh, that's all right. Will you just read me the display on yours and tell me your PIN so I can log in? Help desk people will give it away because what is their objective? Just to get on to the next call, right? So try it yourself, maybe. If you yourself want to be a social engineer, there are 10 necessary attributes. And these are all very, well, with the exception of one of them, possibly, all very easy to do. First of all, you need to be professional. Don't give away that you're trying to do something unexpected. Act like you belong there. Be calm. People have a built-in, various levels of built-in BS detectors, right? And one thing that triggers most of them is someone who's really, really talking fast and trying to get somewhere too quickly. Just take your time. Relax. Know your mark. Do research on the organization you are targeting and the person you are trying to pretend to be. The more you know, the more credible you will sound. I have some hints a little bit later on how to learn about people. Do not fool a superior scammer. Just like you are trying to social engineer somebody else might be trying to social engineer you. And they might be better than you. So if you think you are being scammed, give up. Number 5, plan your escape. You need a way out. If it goes wrong, if something happens, if somebody detects that you are scamming them, you need a way to quickly extract yourself from the situation and essentially be gone. Number 6, be a woman. It is provably true that women are more trusted than men. So be a woman. There are a variety of ways in which you can be a woman. Choose whichever one works best for you. Number 7, use watermarks. Learn these things. I'll talk more about why this is a useful thing in a minute, but being able to distribute paper that looks like it actually came from the organization you want it to come from is a valuable trade. Number 8, make business cards. I'm going to give you a reverse social engineering tip in a little bit. And having a business card is an extremely helpful thing to do here. Do you know that places like Kinko's do not actually verify that you work for the company whose logo you want to have printed on the card? Number 9, manipulate the less fortunate. It's a sad statement, but it's true, right? This will usually always work. And number 10, use a team if you have to. Don't be afraid to enlist help, especially if this is the first time you want to try to do this. More experienced people can give you tips. Now, what is social engineering? We're going to talk about it. Maybe we should define it. It is essentially this: the art and science of getting people to comply to your wishes. Now, it's not a form of mind control. Okay? It is not that, right? You have to do a lot of groundwork. This is actually a more challenging attack, I think, in some ways, than electronically trying to attack a system. You have to spend time gathering information and being completely annoyed with idle chit-chat and mindless people, right? It helps to adopt amusing accents of one kind or another. What is the definition of a consultant? Someone who lives more than 100 miles from you. And that often involves having an accent sometimes, right? You know, so play with that. I find that Australian and New Zealand accents can often sometimes be the most helpful of all of them. Don't we all trust Steve Irwin? Most of the work is in the prep, right? Very little work is actually in the attack itself. Now, let's see. The art and science of getting people to comply to your wishes. Boy, that sounds a lot like sales, doesn't it? Right? You create a spark in somebody, get an interest in something. If you can predict what the eye will see and what the ear will hear and what the mind will think, you have probably achieved the highest form of selling, which is making someone totally unaware that they're being sold, right? So maybe social engineering is the highest form of hacking. It can be easy if you practice it, and it can yield huge results when you do this, because you're preying on the natural desire to help, and that natural desire is what leaves us vulnerable. And it can undermine all kinds of technical countermeasures, right? This is maybe the fastest way into a firewall that I know of. Thing is, you are exploiting layer 8. There is no computer system on Earth that does not rely on people. People can be the most challenging thing in your network to configure. Properly configured, they can be your biggest line of defense, right? But improperly configured and then socially engineered, you're completely bypassing any kind of information control that might exist. And you're going after what? This. The weakest link in any system. The people. That last picture is a public swimming pool in Tokyo. I've been there. It's that crowded. Social engineers generally are very, very suave and sophisticated people. Only amateurs actually will ask for a password. There are so many better ways to get into a system than calling somebody up and saying, hey, what's your password? So this should be the #1 line of defense, right? Because most social engineers are amateurs, so train your people. If they ever get this call, what's your password? Hang up the phone and then report it in some way. There's never a legitimate reason to ask somebody for a password. More suave, more sophisticated social engineers will go through this process of building an emotional bond, right? Maybe even trying to build trust. And they're generally going to target administrators or security personnel, the layer 0 guards, right? You usually don't even work for our organizations. We've hired them. That's outsourced. It's a rent-a-cop. Does an outsourced rent-a-cop really care about your installation, about your systems, or only about making sure he doesn't rock the waves so that he gets the paycheck? I have a problem with outsourcing that kind of thing, but I know that this is the trend. I think it's a mistake. Anyone who has access can be a potential risk, which means what? All of us in this room. Everyone is vulnerable to social engineering of some kind or another. let's talk about 8 different kinds of exploits that you might see. It's not my fault. Social engineer can get somebody else to say, it's not my fault. I only did what I thought I was told to do. This is called diffusion of responsibility. Very common thing to do, because if you can claim it's not your fault and prove it, then maybe you won't get in trouble, even though you were the vehicle for which the attack happened, right? How about chance for ingratiation? If the social engineer can convince somebody that they will reap rewards for participating in the attack, not knowing it's an attack, this is often very, very successful, right? Because fundamentally, we are all what? Greedy, selfish bastards, right? And if we can get something out of it, then we will. The trust relationship is a pretty difficult one, because you have to build it up over time, and then you can finally exploit it. It will always be the one that's most successful. Think of, just picture in your own mind, a couple really, really good friends that you might have. Do they have a price? Right? Do you really trust them? I mean, several of you probably in this room are friends of mine. I'm just not spotting you yet. And I am somebody who's generally a very, very trusting person. And that might be a vulnerability of mine. How about the moral duty? You ought to help me. You can just appeal to that, right? I don't see this one done too often as I research this area. But it is one I see on occasion, trying to convince them that they are morally obligated to do this thing. Or it's inverse. What, you don't want to help me? You know, the church is really good at this one, right? Identification. You know, listen, man, we are two of the same people, right? I mean, we think exactly alike. We go to the same clubs. We mountain bike together all the time. We are essentially clones. We should work together for that reason. And this desire to be helpful. This is the single biggest exploit, right? What's the fastest way to get something out of your office building? Ask the guard to help you carry it to your car. Do you have a policy removal form? Right? You have to fill this out to remove something from the building. You know what? Asking the guard to help you carry it to your car is the best way to bypass that form, because you've used the word help. This is one of the most powerful words in the English language, is the word help. Adopt this. Use it in your vocabulary. You can, of course, you're wanting to get people to cooperate with you, right? Let's work on this together. Pulling rank, making demands, none of these will be successful. But if you go to someone and you say, I need your help, who can resist that? Especially if you're a woman. Direct requests are usually the least likely to succeed, except in the case of where you're asking the guard to help you carry it to your car. That's the example where it does work. Usually it doesn't. You want to contrive some kind of a situation, right? Build in additional factors that the target must consider. Sometimes you might want to build in so many factors that you're overwhelming and confusing the target. I'll help you understand when that's an appropriate method in just a second. Do dress the part. Buy a suit, people. I have one. And yes, it's got full legs. And I use it when I'm doing this, right? And get a clipboard. If you walk around with a clipboard in your arm, make notes. Nobody's going to question you, right? Because you look important. Personally persuade people. If you can actually make the other person believe that they're in control and not you, then you have just about completely succeeded in your effort. That's what we all like to do, right? We all like to imagine that we are in control of whatever situation that we might be experiencing. Maybe this is like hypnotism, I don't know, right? But that's a great skill to master. Is I'm going to get you something to do something, and I'm going to make you feel like you're the one who wanted to do it. This is an important thing to remember. there are two kinds of people in your organization. There are the people who want to care and the people who have been told that they need to care. Usually these are mutually exclusive types of people. We're talking about those with high involvement and low involvement. People with high involvement in the protection of a thing are usually going to be influenced by strong, compelling arguments. If you have good reasons for why you need this information, they will likely comply with those. They will not be influenced by arguments that can be argued with. So make sure you've got really good points if you're trying to social engineer a sysadmin or a computer technician or an info security officer, for example, right? Now, low involved people, the layer 0 people, receptionists, right? Physical security guards, custodial workers, they're going to be influenced by how urgent your request sounds and by how many different things you can hammer at them, right? If you can give them 97 reasons why they should do something for you, they just want to get you out of their hair and they don't care anymore. This is what will influence them. They don't care what the reasons are, right? The actual reasons for you wanting to get in are irrelevant to them. And they generally are not going to respond to very persuasive banter. Memorize this slide, right? And keep this in your brain as you are trying to work with whether people are highly or lowly involved. This is a dangerous thing. It can be dangerous for careers if you happen to start here because it's quite often difficult to get away. But aside from that, people, remember, are naturally helpful. Their function is to help. They want to move on to the next call. They want to provide answers. They are not trained, they are not conditioned to question the validity of each incoming telephone call, right? Now, I'm going to give you a couple ways to solve this problem with some things that your help desk people can do that have zero associated cost and will help raise their involvement in a pretty big way. But for right now, I want you to realize that I think this is the most vulnerable point in any organization is its help desk. You don't pay these people much. And I understand this, right? There's a reason, it's quite often an entry-level position into an IT organization. But because they don't get paid much, they don't feel like they're highly involved. I'll give you a couple hints that will help you fix that near the end of the presentation. Now, quite often people say, well, my computer's secure. All you need is physical access to get to the machine. And I've done a pretty good job of blocking physical access. Well, who needs it, right? Here's an example of a very, very old email worm. This is a Unix worm. Didn't think there were any of those, did you? All right? Convince somebody to run this program, temp/t Tetris, sets up a worm in the machine. It's going to prompt you for your ID and password, right? The mail even tells you this. You might have also seen some of these. Some email line, cool pictures attached. How can you resist that? I'm always going to read that, especially if it sounds like, they might let me see somebody naked. Ooh. Or this one, I joke about this one all the time, right? Helpful dialog boxes, such as this one. Your network connection has been lost. Please re-enter your username and password. Now, this is a Netscape, not an IE, because it was the only one I could find, but both IE and Netscape do a really bad job of letting you know that this is not a system dialog. Who reads this down here? Unsigned Java applet window. Like I know what that means, right? And Internet Explorer says warning applet dialog, but in both of those instances, I don't think that we're doing a good enough job of letting people know that this dialog has been raised by a browser, not by the operating system. I love this poster. This is a good way to start launching user education campaigns. You can go to that URL at the bottom there, nativeintelligence.com, and order this and many other similar posters. Put them around in different places in your organization, cafeterias, hallways, the back of the toilet door, so people see it when they close the door, right? I mean, any place you can imagine where you might just want to be reinforcing little messages. I like I like what Native Intelligence is doing with some of their user education campaign things. Have you thought about public access terminals and how these things might be exploited? What's on this left-hand picture here? A couple people worshiping at an ATM, right? How do you know that's an ATM? Because it's in a wall that has a bank sign on it? Maybe that one's okay. It'd be kind of hard to build a 40-story office building as a social engineer. But what about this story? Several years ago, a couple gentlemen acquired a portable ATM. And they installed it in a shopping center in New Jersey. People would approach this ATM, put their card in, type in their PIN, and then an error message would come up on the screen. Sorry, terminal is out of order. Please try again later, and spit the card back out. But the ATM now knows the card number and the PIN. They let this thing sit in the shopping mall for a couple of weeks and harvested about 100,000 card numbers and PINs, and then shut it down. It's very easy to buy blank cards with magnetic stripe on it. So they took the information they had in the data bank of the ATM, made up 100,000 ATM cards, drove into New York, and used these cards to withdraw hundreds of thousands of dollars from people's checking and savings accounts. The only reason they got discovered is because one of the guys was in a bar one night bragging about what he was doing, and an off-duty New York cop happened to be within earshot. If he would have kept his trap shut, nobody would have found out about this. Portable ATMs actually give me a little fear, and I tend not to use them anymore for that very reason. Maybe I am paranoid. I don't know. How about that thing? I mean, look at this, right? Internet. Oh, there's the Visa MasterCard sticker. Yep. Hey, would you sit down at that thing and log into Outlook Web Access and type your corporate password into this terminal? I've mentioned this before. Keystroke loggers keep me awake at night. I will never sit down at a public station again and log into my own Outlook Web Access and put Microsoft's CorpNet at risk. I don't know if there's a keystroke logger on that thing or not. Why am I afraid of these things? If you've ever been to a building on campus at Microsoft, you know how these things are built. You walk in the front door, and there's a receptionist and some chairs where you can sit down and some magazines to read, and there's a computer there that has an internet connection, and you can use that to do whatever you want while you're waiting for the person who forgot that you had a meeting, or forgot they had a meeting with you to come, right? And then there's another series of glass doors, the one you have to actually unlock with your badge. We found a keystroke logger on one of those machines one time. So I don't do it. I have not logged into my own email from ComNet for the same reason. I don't know the machines. Now, I'm not implying that ComNet is overrun and seething with worms and viruses. But I don't know it, right? And to me, keeping Microsoft's assets is more important, assets protected is more important than the convenience of reading mail. What about Secure ID? If you use a Secure ID, it's still not, I mean, fine, but remember the social engineering attack of acquiring somebody's Secure ID and PIN. Secure ID, I believe, becomes a valuable threat against this perhaps once they get the link between the PIN and the Active Directory credential. I'm really excited about RSA doing that, by the way. So, maybe you're interested in doing this. You want to try this yourself, or you're just curious about what social engineers use. There's two things that are critically important. You need a phone, and you need a good quality telephone. Don't do this on a cell phone, okay? And be sure that there's not the sound of like a train going by. That's usually going to give it away. I'm sitting in an office, right? So, be in a nice, quiet place with a good, high-quality telephone. You get the telephone, but what are you targeting? Remember, what are you targeting? You're targeting a human. You need a mark of some kind. Right? You need somebody to target. Google image search is my friend. I love it. Other useful bits. Have an ANI if you're going to plan a callback scam. All right. If you need somebody, if you need to know the number that they're calling from because you're going to do a callback scam, you need to have caller ID. A voice changer is good. This is one easy technique to be a woman. All right. If you don't want a more interesting way, get a voice changer. And you do need the ability to think quickly, right? Because remember, you don't know how the other person is going to react. This is not a script you're reading. You got to learn about your mark. You need a collection of information tidbits to sound authentic, right? Lots of ways you can go to find information. Whois and Finger are still useful tools primarily for some of the Unix systems that have still been exposed to the internet and have not been secured in the right way. Domain registration records. You can learn a ton of information about a system by looking here. How so? You all have an internet connection, right? I'm sure you do. Why would you be here if you didn't? You have a domain record. And inside the domain record is what? 3 valuable pieces of information. The technical contact, the billing contact, and the administrative contact. Now, you, as the social engineer, are interested in the technical contact here, right? You're going to look that up. You're going to find that person's email address. And then you're going to go out to where are we going, friends? Job websites. Because all technical people are looking for a better job. And you're going to find Joe Smith's resume. Download that thing. It's only $5. Isn't that interesting that the value of our career history is $5? You're going to download that thing, and you're going to look at the top of the experience section, and whatever's listed first is the environment of your targeted organization. Look at the organization's own website. You can learn a lot about Microsoft.com just by studying. I mean, you can learn a lot about Microsoft just by studying Microsoft.com. How much are you giving away? Or Google. All right. Totally vain question, but it's fair. We're all friends here. We've been together all week. How many of you regularly Google on your name? How many of you are going, oh, wow, that's cool. I'm going to try it when I get home. All right? Do this. Actually, go to the image search and Google on your name. That might be scary. Anyway, this is an enormous repository of information. And you know what? They don't seem to have the following function on their hard drives. Erase. They just store so much, right? Next, make a site visit, okay? Look good, blend in. Remember, wear a suit if necessary. Unless you know the place you're going is actually super casual, then don't show up in a suit. I actually made this mistake one time. I shockingly overdressed when I went to see a customer, and they had on cutoffs and tank tops, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Can I go home and change? A fake ID badge, extremely easy. Most of your badges have a white back. The badge itself is white, and there might be a blue background. Guess what? 47 of the 50 driver's licenses look like. And when I was working at a customer one time, I succeeded for 2 weeks flashing my Microsoft badge to get in their building because badges look the same, right? Watch how people go in and out of buildings. Do they linger? Do they chat? Or do they stride with purpose? Or if they are striding with purpose, right, you do need to pretend that you belong. Don't stand around and do this. That's kind of it's like looking at a map when you're in New York. At least just look like you blend in. Private offices are the best place to do these kinds of things because you will be less questioned. Look for where computer connections are, conference rooms. Private offices a lot of times have a hub, so you can maybe plug in your attack computer right there in the hub, and it'll be in. Or you could bring in your own little wireless access point. I mean, there are different things you could do to make your own computer connections. Look for posted lists and notes. Most people still use paper to put memos up on bulletin boards in some places, okay? And these memos often come from, quite often, vice presidents, or at least they're signed by a vice president's name. Wow, you just learned the name of possibly an important mark. And again, deal with lowly involved people. Ask the people who generally aren't going to care about whether you're there or not. This is a valuable skill. Don't be embarrassed. How many of you bulk erase your backup tapes before you throw them away? How many of you burn your phone books before you, or don't throw them away? How many of you burn them instead of just tossing them, right? Calendars, I mean, you know, you can learn a lot about a person's behavior just by watching where they go. It's fairly evident if you look at my calendar that I'm home one week and gone another week. So it would be a strange occurrence to see me in my office 2 weeks in a row, right? So don't plan your attack assuming that I'm going to be there when I'm not there. Org charts, printouts of source code, old discarded hardware. When you got your new computer a couple months ago, did you use a utility to low-level format the hard drive? But before you did that, did you use something else that would scrub every sector 9 or 10 times? Or did you just trash your hard drive with porn and think no one's going to find it? People do this stuff, right? They harvest old machines looking for things to see what they can find. So build a picture. Now, faking a telephone representative could work, but there are better ways to do this. Use the mail. Send something in the mail. You might already be a winner, right? How many of you have gotten one of these before? We value your opinion. Look like, be like official-looking mass mail. And in one of your questions, say, we think you're a winner. Would you please put a password on the piece of paper and send it back? And then we'll need that. We're going to call you to verify that it's you, and we'll need you to tell us the password you wrote on the paper. How many of you are going to invent a new password for that? Maybe all of you guys would, but how many of your average users would? Right? I mean, what? What do we have? You have a bank system you log into. You've got corporate thing you log into. You've got eBay that you log into. You've got a Hotmail that you log into. Maybe you've got, I don't know, some instant messenger that you log into. How many passwords do you have? One. Right? I know how we do this. Then you finally follow up with a phone call. Ask for that password. Listen to the speech pattern. Somebody might actually be onto you, and that's kind of visible in the way they talk. If you are able to get data into a system to learn more about it, here are some different ways that you can do that. I love Ophir Arkin's way of fingerprinting a system with ping. This is amazing stuff. Y'all know how Nmap works? Let me go over that for those of you who don't. A TCP packet has a limited number of valid ways that it can be constructed. There are 6 flags that can exist in the TCP header, and not all possible combinations are legal. The TCP's RFC only specifies how a system should respond to legally formatted packets. It leaves undefined the behavior in the presence of an illegal packet. Nmap has a database of how various operating systems respond to illegally formatted packets. So it will just send these packets into the machine and look at the response, and it will guess and give you a probability what the target operating system is running based on how the responses are to these illegal packets. An example of an illegal packet has all 6 flags turned on. It's called a Christmas tree packet. That's one example. Or like SYN and FIN, synchronize and close down, both turned on the same packet. That's an illegal packet. ICMP, Ophir Arkin, talking about using ping. Different systems will respond in different ways to different lengths of ICMP packets. If you send a ping with 128 bytes to Windows, it behaves differently than a ping to Unix that's 128 bytes. The ping of 256 bytes, again, will behave in a different way. So he's figured out ways to map systems using ping. Telnetting for banners is another way of learning a lot of useful information. Telnet is one of the ultimate hacker tools, right? You just Telnet to any listening port, you might get back an interesting banner that could tell you something. I gave you the example of the domain records and job websites earlier. And then port scanning. Port scanning, interestingly enough, is still not illegal. I hope it never becomes illegal, because it's a useful tool, right? I mean, there's legitimate reasons for doing that. What is port scanning? Port scanning is walking down the middle of the street and looking to see whose doors might be hanging wide open, right? It's Nmap that's the illegal thing, walking up to the door and then jiggling the lock and then seeing if it does open what you might see on the inside, right? Port scanning itself is not illegal, but it is another way of learning a lot about what's running on a system. So you've got information about your mark, you've got information about the computer system. What do you do next? Get on the phone, call their help desk. Pretend like you can't log in. You've gathered some information, right, about your mark so you can pass the verification checks. What's your name, what's your address, what's your social security number, all of these usual kinds of verification checks. Quite often, social or help desk guys don't have a lot of social skills. So pray on this. Okay? Be persuasive. How about this one? Hey, I've seen you at work. Let's get to know each other better. All right? Now that's more helpful if you're a woman, right? But anyway, it works. But don't ask for too much. You'll tip your mark off. I love this idea of reverse social engineering. What is this? Well, you're going to sabotage something, first of all, right? You're going to create a problem on the target's network. But you're going to leave behind one or two of those business cards that you printed up. Right? Or if you're going to do something to the code and incorporate an error message into it, leave your contact information in the error message. Wouldn't it be nice if more Windows error messages gave you the telephone number and the name of the program manager who owns the code? I would like that. And then what are you going to do? Right? You've sabotaged the computer. You've left contact information. They're going to call you. And now you call or you respond and you say, I know how to fix that problem. You're the hero. Oh, don't forget to leave a back door, too. You don't have to do this a second time to come back, right? So how do you protect yourself? We as security people spend so much time concentrating on all the electronic and the technical bits, and we think we're done, and we completely have forgotten about this, about the people. And there's all kinds of ways to get vulnerable, right? So how do you protect yourself? How do you defend Layer 8? I'm sorry about the title of the session. I don't know why it says against Layer 8. I want to defend Layer 8. Layer 8 are my people. How do I defend them? Social engineering is usually ignored. This is a problem. We are embarrassed to admit that we are vulnerable or have been socially engineered. Technical people are proud of their knowledge, right? And they like to share. So this is another great source of getting information from which then to conduct social engineering. And everyone is susceptible. Every one of you in this room at some level and some skill set is vulnerable to this attack. We want to raise a multi-level defense. 6 levels of defense. Boy, this looks like a lot of work, doesn't it? There is some work involved here. Mainly because we've fallen so far, we, small w, computer security industry, have fallen so far behind in thinking about this that much of it is remedial. So you got to start at the beginning, right? You need this thing. You need a policy that expresses acceptable and understood behavior. I have been spending some time lately thinking a little bit about this. A customer once asked recently, what do we need a computer security policy for? And I was like, ooh, I don't know how to answer that question. It just seems so automatic to me, right? It just seems so obvious to have one that it never occurred to me to ask why. Well, a couple things. Look at that first bullet. Enables management to make a statement about the value of the information to the business. A few years ago, I worked for an electrical utility company. And then this organization was going through a process of where they were starting to get it. It was a beautiful situation to be in. Yeah, a regulated monopoly that was cool. They thought for a long time all they sold was electrons and that nothing else was important. But they started realizing that the information in their computer systems was as important as the electrons. because those informations enable them to sell those electrons and keep track of them, right? Do you guys think that telephony is the most important business of a telephone company? It's not. The most critical thing to a telephone company is that call detail record. Telephone companies are amazingly efficient billing engines. Wouldn't you agree? Right? It's that call, that thing is gold to the phone companies. That call detail record. The fact that your cell phone called a 911 because your sister got her arm cut off by an alligator just doesn't matter to them, right? We wish it weren't that way, but that's the way it is. So policies help you do this, right? Express the value of information to the business. You know something else? It's not on the point here because this is, or not on the slide, but this is a more recent thinking that I've come across. Information policies give you a foundation to stand on when you make human resource decisions. It's becoming more increasingly difficult, especially outside the United States, to fire people. People who knowingly put the organization at risk ought to be fired, I believe. A policy can help you do that if you make this business decision. If your employees sign a policy when they start working, and the policy prohibits certain kinds of behavior, and then the employee performs that behavior, and you fire them, they can't come back and sue you for wrongful termination because they signed a document knowing that this thing was a prohibited behavior. If for no other reason than being able to cover your ass legally, I think computer security policies are a valid thing to start having. Here are the elements that are appropriate for computer security policies, and many of these do specifically address social engineering too. What to give out, what not to give out. What is private? How do you define what is private? Is a user ID private or is a password private? Well, obviously the password is private. Should a user ID be private too? Look on your business card. What's in front of the @ sign for your email address? That's your user ID. These things are not really private. Next, security awareness. How do you get people to realize that they are part of the solution, right? That their participation is mandatory in keeping the computer secure. Do remember that uniforms are cheap. I used to live in Columbus, Ohio, and there was a shopping center there that that had a store in it that sold uniforms. You could go be a cop for a day, or a UPS man for a day. You know, the men in brown have something going. But you could buy a UPS uniform, and you could be a UPS guy for a day. You could be a fireman for a day. Whatever you want. You could buy the necessary uniform bits. How do you recognize when you're under attack? Get your people to look for all of these things, right? If they're asking for contact information and there's a refusal to give it, boom, that's a tip-off. This is a social engineering attack in progress. People going too fast, people dropping too many names too rapidly, right? Sometimes these are just annoying people, but this is, also, this is a good sign of social engineering. And learn to say no. Empower your help desk to say no. In other words, teach them to be firewall guys, right? How do you educate users? How do you conduct an effective security management campaign or security education campaign? And then how do you periodically refresh it? Do not be an extra source of noise to be ignored, meaning prettily formatted emails that people automatically hit the delete key. I mean, there's a reason why the delete key is the shiniest key on my keyboard, right? Newsletters that show up in inboxes, people ignore these things, they throw them away. Here's what we do at Microsoft when we want to raise awareness of something. We throw a thing, we call it a fest. And there's two successful attributes of every fest: food and booze. Right? We'll throw this thing, we'll invite people to come, learn a little bit about whatever it is we're trying to teach them, fill their bellies and satiate their thirst, and they're happy people. And they remember what we talked about. So, well, 90%, because remember, we are giving them booze, but I mean, it works. And it doesn't cost a lot, and the retention is so high. Like TechEd, yes. Nice. Man, you guys have been sharp this year. Harden the people, right? The next level here is this fortress level. Train the people with some resistance. Inoculate them. Teach them the arguments that they are likely to hear and what some possible counter-arguments are. In other words, give them this presentation right here. Now, here's the reality check, right? Social engineering is out there. Most people accept this. It can happen to others. Most people accept this too. People are unwilling to believe number 3 until it becomes an experiential event, that it's actually happened to them. Otherwise, people won't believe that it can happen to them. You know, my father was petrified when I turned 16. Like all fathers of children are when the children turn 16. You get what when you turn 16? Driver license. And he used to say, you know, you can practice the driving all you want, but I'll be glad when you finally have your first wreck, because this is the way you really learn about the power of a car. And I'm like, nah, that's not going to happen to me. Well, and it did eventually happen, right? And I learned the power of an automobile. Usually, number 3 has to be experiential, right? The ongoing reminders, like I said, I think the FEST is the best way to achieve this kind of resistance training. Police departments do this kind of thing continually. How many of you have are current or former police or have involvement in that? You know, they have their morning meetings, and they have their morning meetings where they get together and talk about recent criminal activity. And why do you think they spend time counting the number of dead bodies? Because it reminds them that they could be one of those someday, right? This is an interesting thing. We don't actually, that I know of anyway, do one of these at Microsoft. Maybe we do. I haven't seen one yet. But it's this idea of a social engineering landmine, the justified know-it-all. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Tell me about it. What are you here for? When'd you get here? When are you leaving? When'd you get here? You know, repeat, like El Al security, right? Callbacks by policy. This is an interesting thing to teach your help desk. Or please hold by policy. High-up person in your organization calls, claims they forgot their password. They can't get their passwords reset over the phone. Must call them back at a prearranged number to let them know the password, right? We do this one at Microsoft. Now, I'm not remembering we do this one. If I need to get my password reset because I've forgotten it, I can call the help desk and go through a couple of verification questions, and they will then call my office voicemail to leave the password. That is the prearranged callback number for the way we do it at Microsoft CorpNet. Now, of course, I never use my desk phone, so I have absolutely no idea what my voicemail password is. This would not work for me. But this is the policy we have. They will not call you back at a cell phone. The please hold by policy is an interesting one. If this request is coming in, it sounds really, really urgent. Don't immediately give an answer, but wait. The key questions is an interesting point. Have 3 prearranged questions that everyone should supply answers to, and your help desk would then simply ask these questions. Maybe not all 3 of them, perhaps just 2 of them, and make sure that the answers supplied by the caller are the ones that have been stored in the database. The bogus question, I think, is a little bit more of a neat trick. Hey, this is Al. I forgot my password. Oh, okay, Al, hang on. I'll reset that for you. Oh, by the way, how's your daughter? Is she okay? Is she better after the accident? Oh, yeah, she's much better. Thanks for asking. In the database, it says Al has no daughter. Neat. I like that one. You, of course, then do need to take care of the problem, right? Even with all of these other layers of defense, somebody might successfully social engineer somebody in your organization. So you've got to react to that. You can't just ignore it and hope it will go away. Much like many diseases that affect your social life, you've got to respond to the incident. You need a well-defined process that the incident handlers can go through. Why is this important? So that they aren't panicking. When most people they completely fail to handle stressful situations. They just panic. They go crazy and make bad decisions. And if you're doing forensics, like on a computer system, you might erase evidence or something like that, right? By having the process that's occasionally rehearsed, the incident handlers, all they need to do is follow the steps. It actually helps eliminate stress when you're doing the incident response. And it's good to test this every once in a while. You need to have drills on things like this, and they can be fun. Yeah, okay, so there needs to be one of these in every PowerPoint presentation, right? This is. Have you guys tried to download the slides? Are they finally downloading now for you? Are they? Okay, I had ComNet put a new set. I don't know what happened to those slides, but they are now downloadable. You can go do a save as and save them to something. So get this deck. Look at this chart here. This is a very handy little chart. If you are afraid of some area of risk, like, for example, your dumpsters, well, the attack is dumpster diving, so what do? Keep your trash secure, or shred, or erase in a good way, right? So this is just a nice guidance to help you handle certain areas of threat appropriately. So we have a little bit of time here. What do you guys think? I mean, this is kind of a new thing for TechEd, right? Is to have a session about people and not about computers. I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time. I hope this has been useful for you. I hope, in a way, it's maybe frightened you just a little bit. Maybe you'll go do something. Maybe get a little bit better. I believe, I don't have any empirical evidence to support this conclusion, but I believe these attacks are going to be on the rise, especially since we're all starting to get pretty good about electronic security and information security, right? It's going to hit the people more and more. So we need to start thinking about this. And we've got to try to get better and really start attacking, to pick a word, this problem. Now, where can you go to learn more about it? Unfortunately, we don't have any articles or books or anything on this, so make your own page of links, right? Right there. All you need to do is Google on social engineering, right? Make your own page of links to learn more about this stuff. It's a fairly easy thing to do. You can cut and paste out of this slide right here. You don't even need to type. Hey, it's Friday afternoon, all right? I know, we're all lazy people. You've seen it before in some other presentations. I think we ran out of them now, so you'll have to go to the web and download one. Here are my groupies here, so this is cool. I always feel good with these guys. Oh, no, somebody gave me a shirt. Evil MCT Click. All right, this is good. You want this one? It's been a pleasure with you guys this year. I'll see you again next year.